Hi, everyone. This is Jack Allwild with another money episode. Today, we have special guest Mike Swenson from the REL Freedom podcast. He is a real estate investor. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Mike, before we get into your real estate endeavors, I'd like to start out by asking, what was your relationship with money like growing up?
Yeah, so this is something that I didn't necessarily realize how much it affected me until later in life. But I grew up in a household with two parents that had working class jobs, and I was taught, get a good job, safe, stable job, contribute to your company's 401k, and do that until you hit retirement age, and that's kind of the way to go. And so we were middle class. We didn't have a lot, but we at least had food on the table every day, which was great. And so, I went off to college and didn't really realize that other people live different ways. I grew up in a small town, so I would say it was relatively sheltered in that sense of I didn't necessarily see a lot of people out there making a ton of money to realize. I just kind of thought that's what everybody did. And I majored in entrepreneurship in college, not because I was planning on starting a business, but I thought it would help me to learn a lot about business. And so then I worked for a nonprofit for 10 years, kind of, thinking safe, stable. I didn't make a lot of money in that role, and then got into real estate in 2014 full time and saw kind of this drastic difference of people making money. And so I didn't realize until probably the last couple years how much that upbringing really shaped me to probably think conservative in pursuing money. Just, as long as I have enough, that's good enough. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started out. And now realizing like there's this whole other end out there where you can do a lot more, you can make a lot more, and being exposed to that. Like I said, I was probably pretty sheltered growing up.
So you said you got into real estate 2014. What was that like switch that went off that got you down that path?
Yeah, so for me, it was about wanting some more opportunities. So I was on the admin operations side previously. I majored in entrepreneurship. I also majored in finance. So I worked for a finance job for a couple of years. That transitioned in kind of an operation management type role. And then I kind of just was stuck. I didn't have a next promotion probably for another 10, 15 years. And so I was like, okay, am I going to continue to do this, make the 2%, 3% increases every year? And then we were adding kids to our family. We had one and we had number two on the way. And so I was kind of thinking I'd like to see some more opportunity out there. And so getting into real estate was really just about getting more opportunity. I had no plans to be a realtor or to get my license and be an agent. So I just worked on the admin ops side for 6 years. We built that into the 31st largest real estate team back in 2019. And then I launched my team in 2020. I kind of at that point realized I've helped enough other people make money, and now it's time to kind of focus on me. So 2020, I launched my team and then got my license, and have now been specializing on working with investors since then.
Can you go through? So you talk about you didn't really realize some of the beliefs you had back then, or you didn't appreciate your relationship until later on. Can you talk through maybe some of those limiting beliefs that you had that you now kind of discovered, oh, there's a different way? Or
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't realize you have them until you get further down the road or you're exposed to other things. So my roommate in college, his dad had built and ran a real estate business. Interestingly enough, we never talked real estate in college. We lived together for 2 years and never really talked about it, but I just knew, he was taking over for his dad's business. And so that was his plan. A lot of the other students in my entrepreneurship, class were taking over family businesses or launching their own businesses. And my thought always was like, yeah, but what about your paycheck? Like, what are you going to do for that? And so I think that's where, like I said, I just I wasn't exposed to those other ideas. And so I was thinking, well, you got to get paid every 2 weeks. Like, what do you do? How does that work? And now obviously I learned through my 4 years that people can do that. So it's like I understood it in my head, but I didn't understand it in my heart. Like I didn't believe in myself enough to think I can do this on my own. I'd rather, pursue my own path and build my own destiny. I probably had a lot of limiting beliefs in my head thinking, I need somebody else to provide a job for me. I felt confident in my ability to do a good job for an employer, but I never really thought I was capable to tread my own path. And so I'm also a bit of an introvert, and so I kind of thought, probably that entrepreneur mentality is, somebody that's out there, they're extroverted, they're going, they're doing, and that wasn't as much my personality. And so maybe I just thought, my best place is really accenting and enhancing a really good entrepreneur as kind of that number two type person in an operational role, which did work out well for me for 6 years. I was kind of the number two for a top person. And so I have a lot of skills and abilities doing that, but I decided I want to be in control of my own destiny and forge my own path. And then that's why I decided to join my team. So I finally kind of had, I guess, enough of falling in line or following somebody else's path and vision for me in their company and deciding I want to forge my own path. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So how does your life look right now? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I've got a few things. So kind of my day job is a real estate agent that works with investors. So we help investors, find properties. I tell them, I'm looking at what types of properties you want to invest in, what would be a fit for you. And I just say I'm kind of that real estate investor matchmaker trying to find properties that fit that. So whether it's, a duplex, a midterm rental, short-term rental, an apartment complex, I'm trying to find properties that fit the needs of my investor buyers. Then kind of my night job, I guess, is investing myself. And it was a conscious choice for me a couple of years ago to only focus on working with investors because I figured I could get further faster if my day job working with investors, I'm looking at properties, analyzing deals, building relationships all day long. That would really enhance my, kind of after job of investing myself. And so, we've invested in, we have a 25 unit apartment complex. We're closing on a 20 unit apartment complex this month. And then we also have a short-term rental in New York and looking to do some more with short-term rentals. And then in addition to that, I do my podcast, REL Freedom, where we've got 2 episodes a week coming out. And it's really just highlighting people building time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. And so it's all various backgrounds, all various types. And you were on the show a little while back as well, talking about your experience in real estate and kind of how that's played a role in your life. And so that's what I want to do, is just tell good stories and inspire people that are pursuing real estate in some way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll say I've loved hearing some of your guests. They're all great stories, and I even ended up getting into the land flipping because you had Mark Podolsky on. So that's you providing great value for your listeners.
Yeah.
So and also, what, just so the listeners know, what city are you out of?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Minneapolis, St. Paul area in Minnesota. But
Okay.
in terms of kind of investing wise, it's interesting. Like the first probably 6 months, 9 months, we were really focused on finding properties in and around Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then as we started to see some of these other deals pop up across Minnesota, we pretty much cover most of Minnesota, especially with some of these larger apartment deals. They're harder to come by, and the numbers look a little bit different in outstate Minnesota versus kind of in the metro area, particularly more kind of cash flow type opportunities. And so now, we've closed on properties 3, 4, 5 hour drives away from where we live. And so it's just finding good deals. So pretty much most of Minnesota will cover.
So I think that sounds very daunting to a lot of people investing out of, their local area. How have you gone about cultivating relationships with property managers, agents, or contractors, those types of people that you would need to pull something like that off?
Yeah, so it really comes down to, having kind of 3 key people in your back pocket. One is obviously the lender, and a lot of lenders lend in multiple states, and so they don't have to be located in the state where the property is or the state where you live. It's just finding a good relationship with a lender. Now, if you're doing a commercial property, sometimes local banks, local credit unions might be more advantageous and provide better rates. And so that's a possibility. But I usually talk with people, hey, talk to somebody close to you, somebody close to us, and maybe somebody more nationally known, and just kind of see what's the right fit for your profile and for the property. So a lender is really important. An agent or just somebody sourcing deals, boots on the ground that can identify deals and send them your way, is really important, and can, a lot of my investors that I work with are out of state, and I would say 95% of them don't even view the property before they close on it, because they work through me, and that's my job to be the boots on the ground for them. And so obviously that has to be somebody that you trust to be able to help make good decisions. And so I, do property tours, videos, photos, talk with them, show them, the neighborhood so they feel comfortable with it. So we go through all that. So somebody kind of boots on the ground, finding and sourcing the deals and helping get them closed. And then, the property manager is really important. They're the one that's going to manage the asset. And so, whenever we find a deal, really pretty quickly in the conversation, it turns to, who do they have that can manage it? Is it somebody that's currently managing it? Is it somebody else that's, located in that city or nearby that can manage it? But we have to have a good property management solution in place before we would ever close on a property, because we want to feel good about what's out there, and then not be limited by, hey, it's a small town and there's only one person and it's this guy or gal, because if that doesn't work out, well, then what are you going to do? So you need to be, have identified at least some other options out there, where if this particular property manager doesn't fit, I can go find some other options.
Mm-hmm. So seeing as that you work with so many investors, what do you, in this current environment, what are you seeing that's like working, or maybe looking a little more attractive at this point? I mean, we got interest rates going up. I mean, it looked like at least the reported CPI might be cooling off, but we still have pretty high interest rates relative to recent past. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. 99% of deals that come across aren't going to be a fit. And so we're looking for, we really are looking for the needle in the haystack for people, and they're out there. It's just finding a balance of, meeting your goals, understanding that, for some of these larger apartments, it's not a moneymaker day one. You're in an apartment to kind of wait it out over time. And as you can get control over expenses, as you can raise, rents, or add, renovate properties and bring properties up to market rents, it is a longer term play. And so seeing the bigger picture, and what we tell people is, if you're comfortable with the numbers now, most likely they'll get better as you hold on to the property. So we're not going to tell somebody take a loss for the next 3 years till rates go down. So yeah, absolutely, people are more conservative. It's also just you've got to be creative. So maybe you were only interested in long-term rentals. Well, there's some needs out there for short-term or mid-term rentals. It's a different type of management strategy. It's a different type of, opportunity. And so you look at some of those and say, hey, can we maybe get a little bit more revenue if we do it this way, with the understanding of kind of worst case scenario, we can always turn it back into a long-term rental. So you've got to be creative with that. Some of the larger properties too, sellers are willing to do some seller financing opportunities because they recognize the market's different too. And so, on this particular property we're closing on this month, seller has agreed to finance 10% of the purchase price for a 5% interest rate. And so, that helps make the numbers look a little bit better. And so, this particular property, we're anticipating, rates in the high sevens, and we still can get it to pencil in a way that we're comfortable moving forward. And so if rates do drop and we do a refinance, sometime down the road, or we, decide to sell, that's a better opportunity for somebody in the future. So yeah, it's not easy. And yet at the same time, that's my job, and I need to sell properties to continue to make money. And so I have to put on my creative hat as much as possible, and, find deals that are a fit for our investors, and try to be creative in how we approach those deals to find something that they're intrigued by.
Awesome. Well, Mike, as we are winding down, I like to ask everyone, what is the best and worst personal finance advice you've either heard or received?
Yeah, I think for me, I guess it's probably finance advice, but I remember as I was going through my transition into, from being an employee to having my own company, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks a lot about, especially to younger folks. I'm in my early 40s now, and so I feel a lot older than I probably should feel. But he always talks to people like, you have time when you're in your 20s, even in your 30s, and even in your 40s. He would still say, like, you have a lot of time to make up for mistakes that you've made. And so, he encourages folks to be aggressive and pursue your dreams. And I remember him saying something about, like, if you're unhappy in a role and you're making less than $100,000, maybe you just go pursue the thing you really love, because you've got time later in life to be able to kind of make up for that. And so, I did do some investing in real estate in my 20s, but I also, when I first bought my first townhouse, that was right when the crash happened in '08, just before that. So we lost half the equity in our first property. We turned it into a rental. We held on to it for an additional, it would have been 17 years. We held on to that property and sold it for a profit, but we kind of didn't get off to a good start. And so real estate can, over time can fix things. And so for me, it's about, getting started early, really going after what you love, because, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you might regret not going after what you really want to go after in life. And so I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm loving it. I wish I would have started this right out of college. Being an entrepreneurship major in college, I wish I would have started it right out of the gate, because I really love the fact that I can do what I want, and I'm learning a ton at the same time. I've learned a lot about commercial real estate. I've learned a lot about short-term rentals. And so I'm constantly learning every single day. But yeah, I'd love to have started it 20 years earlier.
What about worse? You got anything that you're just like, no, that's not good advice?
I would say, on the bad side, I think people are too scared. So this kind of goes a little bit in line with what I was talking about, but people are too scared that they might lose money. So when I talk about, real estate, people aren't willing to kind of take action because they think, well, what if something could go wrong? And so I think kind of the worst advice is to just sit and wait. Like, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. That might not happen for 3 or 4 years. So are you going to wait 3 or 4 years on your future dreams because the interest rates are a little bit high right now? And so I think right now what I see from people is just a little bit more of a conservative nature. Now, granted, you're not going to do something stupid, but I'm going to wait till the rates go down isn't good advice, because there's still appreciation that happens. There's still a ton of great things just in the realm of real estate investing that you can do, where you can make money over these next 3 to 5 years. And all the people that are just standing around on the sidelines waiting aren't going to be able to receive those benefits. And they're not going to gain the educational experience from sitting on their hands. And so I think, sometimes people, it's a little bit paralysis by analysis. And so you could spend a lot of time listening to my podcast and not doing anything, or, listening to all the other talking heads or educational stuff out there and not do anything, but you've got to act. And so, if you're reading out there right now, now's not a good time to invest. I remember reading something where they talk about, like, if 95% of people are running out of the building that's on fire, you got to figure out a way of, like, how do I get in there? Like, there's probably a reason here. And so I think most people are sitting on the sidelines right now because the conventional wisdom is rates are high. Don't get a mortgage right now. But if you can get the numbers to pencil right now, you've got a great opportunity moving forward in the future.
Awesome. Well, Mike, where can the listeners go to learn more about you or get in touch with you?
So my website, REL Freedom, it's REL stands for Real Estate Leverage Freedom. RealFreedom.com is a good place to go. My podcast, we've got 2 episodes a week that are being released. And there's just a lot of good stuff there. You can reach out to me personally. My email is just mike@realfreedom.com. But you can find that on the website. But check it out. Hopefully you get some good education and maybe be inspired to take action like you did after, listening to a different podcast episode and pursuing land investing. It's awesome. And so real estate's a lot of fun. I think people are sometimes turned off or scared because there's so much to learn. But you just got to pick a lane and get started. And once you get started, there's so many other opportunities out there. And so I love it. It's fantastic. But yeah, check out the website. And if you want to reach out, if you have questions, I love talking to people and love kind of figuring out what's going to be your path that you might want to pursue. So reach out to me. Happy to do that.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I'm sure the listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.